Hey guys, it's Ted with HDpiano. Here's the Star Wars main theme. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to leave it there for now. So this entire theme is going to be in lessons at HDpiano.com. I'm going to teach you the whole first part of it in this lesson. So we're going to start with the introduction. And I don't know about you, but I'm really stoked to be playing this piece of music. I've actually never had a chance to play this on piano before. Been hearing it my entire life, and our arranger, Luke, did a great job with this piano arrangement, trying to catch some of these bits and pieces from the original orchestra music. So we're going to start with this big chord up top in the introduction. This is like that big first orchestra fanfare. So you have a big chord to reach with your left hand. We're actually grabbing B flat, F, and D. And for me, I cannot reach this with my hand all in one go, but fortunately we can do something called a roll. We start on the bottom note and roll up to the top note. And if we have the sustain pedal down, it sounds like one connected chord, especially when we put it together with this B flat octave in our right hand. So give that a try, and if it's too hard to catch that roll in your left hand, you can just play the bottom two notes. It's going to sound good too. Then we're going to do this little fanfare here. So I'm staying on these same two notes in my right hand. You can use fingers 1 and 5, or you might find it easier to use fingers 1 and 4, depending on your hand. And rhythmically, I'm thinking strong beats here. I want to lead in to a strong beat on the last of these 4 notes. So the strong beats are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So on beats 3 and 1, that's where I want to land. And you can take it as slow as you need to when you're first getting the feeling for that rolled octave. But focus on landing where you want to rhythmically on the last note. Now, for this next part, I want you to see this shape in the right hand. If you can get these four notes played at the same time in your right hand, it's going to make this pattern pretty easy to play. So rather than thinking of it as a bunch of individual notes, I want you to think of the shape, and then we're going to break it into this pattern. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. So that same pattern just repeats. And you might break it into cells, like just practice the first 3 notes and then the next 3 notes. This is a great practice technique for something that's tricky to play fast. You can practice making the transitions between a few of the notes really fast, like, but give yourself time to pause between each of those little segments. And then you change up where the segments happen. So like, so I just displaced that by 1 note. And by using that practice technique, you can get all the transitions really smooth. And then it makes playing it at tempo pretty easy. So let's add that left hand. This follows the same rhythm as the right hand, which makes it pretty easy. And here in the left hand, we have this shape. For any music theory nerds, we're really emphasizing the interval of a perfect fourth. John Williams loved that interval. It's this big, powerful, open-sounding interval. So in our left hand, we have these fourths, B flat, E flat, A flat, and it comes in with the right hand right here. And this is a moment where you can kind of start slowing down a bit to give it more drama and more heft. This is all brass instruments playing this in the original, so take your time with this, and then There we go. We're into the top of the main theme. All right, so once more, I'm going to play through that introduction that we've had so far, and then we'll get into the first part of theme A. Here's the introduction. And then we get into the part we all know. All right. So for this next part, I'm just going to start with the first 4 measures of it, and I'll leave the rest of this to our next lesson section. But there's actually a lot to get under your fingers here. There's going to be some tricky things. The first thing, though, is just to get this main melody. And you probably know this really well by heart. So lean on that to help you remember where you're going to put your fingers. That's it for the melody that I'm going to teach you in this section. So take your time with that. If you're at HDpiano.com, you can slow down the speed if you need it. And just get those single notes in the right hand. That's going to be it for the right hand, except that in these very last few notes, you're going to add one lower note. And I catch all of those with my thumb in the right hand. This interval is called a fifth for theory people. And we're just following the exact shape of the top note with the bottom note, starting on this A flat. So that's it for the right hand in this part. Now, here's the hardest part of this whole lesson. It's adding in this left hand coming up together with the right hand. The main 2 chords we're going back and forth between are this chord, which is a B flat major chord, and then this chord. And you can really keep your hand in the same place on the keyboard to do this. And in fact, we're sharing 2 of the same notes. That makes your job easier. The notes that change is that this top note goes up to E flat, and also on the second chord, you add in this A flat. So just get used to going back and forth between these 2 chords. And once that's familiar, I'm going to teach this part to you by itself, just so you hear how it sounds. But then the really tricky thing is putting it with the right hand. So by itself, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And don't worry so much about those last few notes. For now, those really match up with what's happening with the right hand there. But what we want is these 2 chords back and forth. And you can think of the like march feeling of the orchestra recording here. That's really what we're mimicking. And here's the thing that makes it so hard. There are places where the rhythm of this left-hand part doesn't quite line up with what the right hand is doing. We're kind of in 2 different feelings for the rhythm, and I'll show you what I mean. But that's what's going to make the coordination tricky. So let's go really, really slowly, bit by bit, and this is exactly how you can practice it. So coming from this pickup, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first bar. I just want you to get that. Now, that's actually not so complex, but it's tricky rhythmically because we're coming from this feeling of triplets, right? In the introduction, it was 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so each beat gets divided into 3. Here, suddenly the left hand is going into just eighth notes. We're splitting each beat into 2. So 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's the rhythmic feeling your left hand needs to be working in. So that's what makes it tricky. And then here we really see that contrast. The right hand is still dividing into triplets, 1 and 2, while the left hand stays in eighth notes. So 1 and 2. And then suddenly the left hand also goes to triplets. So going back and forth between these 2 ways of splitting up the beat, triplets and eighth notes. That's going to be the tricky thing here. Without worrying too much about the math of all that, just check out the coordination of where the left hand should come in against the right hand melody. It's you see what's happening there? So the right hand has 2 notes before the left hand comes in with this chord. And then these land together. So the right hand lands on this melody note as the left hand starts these chords. Let's take the first 2 measures here so you see what I mean. That really is the trickiest thing. That fragment of melody together with that chord. And you're just going to want to think 1, 2, 3, like that. And this chord becomes between the 2 and the 3. All right, so moving on from there. So it's nice. Our third measure here is really just a repeat of what we just did. We do this whole thing twice. And then we go into these last chords here. So we get these really nice 3-note chords between the 2 hands. And your left hand is playing C, B natural, C, A. With that, we've covered the whole thing, all the music I want to go through, at least in this first section. And if you want to keep learning the song, go over to HDpiano.com. And I want to point out that you can take your time, start by playing this really slow, and then every now and then check in with the original recording. Sometimes we want to zoom way in with like a magnifying glass when we're working on a piece of music. And we want to then be able to also zoom way out and just intuitively hear how the whole thing is supposed to go. And if you take those 2 tools together and then kind of work them into where you're actually going to perform it, that can be a really effective practice tool. Okay, great job on part 1. If you're on HDpiano.com already, you can click on the next video. If you're not, head on over so you can keep going with this song. If there's another song you want to learn, send us your ideas at requests.hdpiano.com. You can follow us on social media for a heads up about new lessons. And if you're on YouTube, drop us a comment because we love hearing from you. I'm Ted with hdpiano.com. Until next time.